Every week.
Every week.
Every time.
We
I have to say, I think Paul deserves an Oscar. You're
For that.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the EV Cafe, where your favourite EV geeks, as you can see on the screen, otherwise known as the Avengers, will be chatting live, all recorded from anywhere in the world. We don't use Zoom anymore, the second time now, but we do stream live on LinkedIn and YouTube. In other words, we make a fool of ourselves on multiple platforms now. Amongst the silliness, we do this for a very important reason. We want to accelerate the shift to decarbonise transport and mobility and celebrate literally anything that prevents climate change and cleans up our air, because we think it's a really good idea to look after the environment that we live in, which is a nice segue into what we're going to discuss today, which is how consultancy can accelerate the transition to electric vehicles. So Sarah, otherwise known as the EV Queen, what can we expect today? What lovely guests can we expect to speak to today?
What a title. Thank you so much for that intro, Johnny. And I think you're right. Consultancy absolutely underpins anybody in the professional industries that needs to get stuff done. So we're delighted to be learning about Novuna, where you work, from Paulo. And then we're going on to Alan from Thomas Hardy, all about trucks, and Aaron Jarvis from Geotab. He's on again. Aaron Jarvis, so that we can talk about how consultancy in a real world has helped. And then JC, you're going to be controlling the mailroom for us. Thank you. Keep those comments coming in from your live streaming. And I'll be doing a roundup for the news this week as well. And that should bring us to a close at 1.
Brilliant.
So, am I now? I presume because of the silence that I am. It'd be great to get a hand off, but there we go.
No, it just said end, so I ended.
Sorry. It'd be great to get a hand off.
Anyway, good afternoon, everybody. How does all this happen? Well, all this happens. So, Johnny outlined, what we do, and Sarah's talking about today. How does it all happen? Well, it happens with the great support of our wonderful sponsors. And we are sponsored, you can see in the bottom left corner as you're looking at it, by the AA. The AA are giving power to electric drivers, not only helping in the breakdown scenario, but helping at the charge points as well. Fantastic from the AA. And of course, the wonderful Geotab, and we're going to hear directly from Aaron today, but how they help this transition to EV by using data to bring insight. It's a really powerful thing. And we're going to hear a bit more about that. And talking of power, My Energy. Wow. They are delivering power people's homes and businesses across the country, but also cleverly bringing the power of solar into that ecosystem. And how does that all get into the ground? Well, of course, it gets into the ground with the help of EV Civils. EV Civils digging up the ground in a sustainable way and making it efficient for your businesses to get your energy effectively, efficiently, and another word. Anyway, but there we go. Fantastic. What a group of sponsors we have. And now over to
me. Question.
No, you've been already, haven't you? Maybe Sam?
John, it's Curtis next.
You can tell who hasn't read the agenda today.
It was lovely to get a handoff, Paul. Thanks. Anyway, hello. Well, I look after the mailroom, so I deal with all the questions. So you just fire in your questions from YouTube, LinkedIn, and we will suck them in to the machine. I will put them into a list, and then towards the end, once I get my voice back, we will then have an opportunity to speak to our guests and put your questions. I may even name check you. And Jeremy Howard Knight, with the poshest name yet to appear on the EV Cafe this month, you are first question, my friend. The best question will win a mug. One of our EV Cafe mugs, Sam is modeling right now. Sam, oh, thank you, Johnny. Sam, yes. Do we have a full set? No, because I'm donut. But the best question will receive one of our EV Cafe mugs. And moving swiftly along. Or
Can we give away for the best comment as well?
Best
Maybe
question?
a mug for the best comment. So the question and comment, because people can be quite funny.
You
It's coming out of your wallet.
Yeah,
Splashing out the mugs.
I'll pay for one mug.
Can we buy Paul a new hat?
No, I love this hat.
Oh,
I was gonna-
okay.
I was going to try and propose a comment, and that's a stupid hat.
Yeah, but
Do you win a mug?
it's
You
what
win the
keeps
mug.
this from being sunburned.
We still haven't handed over to Sam for his bit for the intro.
Anyway, back to the plot. And here he is, the most wonderful Chief Vehicle Officer for GridServe, because they only have one, Sam Clark.
I'm pretty sure there's only one chief vehicle officer anywhere in the world, to be honest.
Pretty much.
Totally made up my benefit.
That's a very made-up title, definitely.
Made a title, but hopefully I can give it some use. But yeah, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, indeed, my name is Sam Clark. I'm going to do the intros to everybody this morning. And looking forward to all the chats that we're going to have going forward. And I'll like to also continue mock Paul for his hat, because I think it deserves it. I've also seen a question in the chat, which I've got to ask Sarah. It's been asked of you. Why are you looking so grumpy in the video on the EV blinders?
Well, I was asked to channel my inner grump and point at them as if there was, something. But then you can't hide the excitement for the Rivian. I got in that I fitted in that, and I could imagine all the stuff I can get in the back. So the Rivian was chef's kiss.
Yeah, Jeremy's comment was you weren't smiling until the Rivian and Polestar. Did you start to look happy? A woman who has expensive tastes, apparently.
Feel free to say you want to try.
Yes, Mr. Curtis.
Right, I've got the right hump here, because I'm the one who do the questions. I've already said Jeremy Howard Knight is going to be the first question, and Sam just steals my question. I tell you what, do it yourselves.
You want to help me?
Finally, we got rid of him. Hooray.
Anyone would like to join us at the EV Cafe? We've got a space available.
P45, P45.
Right, shall I do the intro?
Yes.
Okay, Paulo, get ready. You're coming. All right, Paulo, 30 years experience in the financial services sector. Hard to believe with those useful looks. With over 20 years in fleet. He headed up the consultancy team at Lombard and worked on several decarbonisation projects at the Energy Saving Trust, and is now the principal consultant at the UK's leading provider of electric vehicles, Novuna, where Johnny works. Apparently, Paulo is a Portuguese name, but he's actually half Spanish, though you wouldn't know it by his accent. So, good morning, Paulo. Nice to see you again, and welcome to our ridiculous crew today.
Well, good afternoon. I don't know what I've walked into, but thank you for that lovely introduction.
Total chaos and nonsense, I think.
So, fleet consultancy. I'm probably going to go through 2 or 3 topics, if that's okay, time permitting. So, what I'd like to do firstly is probably just describe what a fleet consultant is, because I get asked that every day. Secondly, is, probably more importantly, is what does a fleet consultant do? Because that's critical to what we talk about today. And third, if we have time, probably talk about a kind of case study, some real world examples of the sorts of things that a fleet consultant gets up to. So a fleet consultant is a sort of multidisciplinarian person, in the sense that they need to know about, you know, finance, compliance, taxation, GHG accounting, and all that sort of stuff. Now, you know, some consultants are indeed accountants or lawyers, but that's not a prerequisite. Having a deep understanding of multiple topics across an organisation is critical. And the reason it's really important is because if you've got a deep understanding of those things and you have really meaningful conversations with stakeholders in all those different fields, then you can expedite things from a project perspective through organisations. And obviously, from a decarbonisation perspective, the imperative is high in the sense that we, from a societal perspective, need to do it. And a lot of organisations indeed really want to get on the bus. So think of a consultant as someone who can turbocharge or as a catalyst to some of these change initiatives. The role of the consultant changed massively since I started. Thanks for mentioning many years ago, as you pointed out, whereby initially the lens of the consultant was very much a financial lens. So the sorts of things that people would ask of you would be, you know, how should I fund my fleet? Should I outright purchase? Should I do an operating lease or a finance lease? Should I give people cash or give them a car? And all that sort of stuff. But since the event of sort of the mid-90s and the sustainability movement, those sort of concepts, so, you know, the environment, well-being, have permeated everything that we do. So the role of the consultants has evolved from sort of just a real narrow financial consideration to involve, you know, occupational road risk, decarbonisation, and so on and so forth. So, you know, we've had to kind of change with the times or die in a sort of Darwinian style. So I'm still here, but the sort of work that I'm doing is very different to that of 20 years ago. So in terms of some of the actual stuff that I do, particularly, you know, the typical fleet, let's say several hundred vehicles, mixed asset classes. Typically in my world, that will be cars and vans, not necessarily heavies in my space, but Novuna has a specialist department that focuses on heavies. We will do things such as, with cars, as an example, advise businesses that they can use a gross trader on electric vehicles and hybrids, ULEVs as they're called, which basically minimises the cost of the employee. Now, given where we are sort of post-COVID with supply chain issues and cost pressures, you know, we were hoping that EVs were going to sort of get to cost parity with ICE drivetrains by about 2025. That's unlikely to happen. So anything we can do to make an EV affordable for employees is really crucial from a car perspective, right? And to that point, you know, implementing salary sacrifice schemes for companies, sort of SME companies as well as large corporates, will allow their employees access to an EV affordably, rather than on a sort of personal PCP type scheme or HP or something like that. And in terms of vans, you know, this is where Johnny and I work very closely together, and you know, we normally have to start from a position of understanding where the client is at. So that will be primarily data driven, but essentially what we're talking about is baselining their carbon intensity or greenhouse gas intensity. And from there, once you know from what direction of travel, from where you're starting, you understand what direction of travel. So with vans, which is hugely challenging, we need to sort of layer multiple considerations into the mix. So, for example, getting the van, challenge number one. Challenge number two, how far is the van going to go when you stick stuff in the back of it, right? Because that's not well understood. There are lots of real world tests done on cars, not many so on vans. And once you get to that stage, I mean, Johnny's always got an eye in terms of infrastructure and how to charge things on the road. But, you know, we meet like the Channel Tunnel in the middle, right? So I'm actually coming at it from a slightly different angle. Is from a decarbonisation perspective, travel less, use less vans to start with. If you have to use a van, use an electric van. If you have to use an electric van, use an electric van that is powered by renewable energy, and so on and so forth. So, the key takeaway really is, I work in a very collaborative way with lots of different stakeholders within the business and with our customers to ensure that effectively they can rapidly transition without kind of falling into any potholes. So I'm probably talking myself down a little bit there, but that's it in a nutshell.
Brilliant.
I don't have a handover or a mug.
See, a handover is so much better than a handoff, apparently.
Sarah's got the first question.
Well, I'm not sure. I've suddenly realised we might be doing questions later.
John?
We seem to be doing questions whenever Sam feels like it.
I think questions from the audience later, perhaps. And
I've
questions
got a question, because one of the things that stood out to me.
Well, I obviously had one too.
Sarah had a hand up.
Sorry.
Honestly, he never learns, does he?
I'm quiet.
I'll just put a hat on and then maybe you'll listen to me. Okay. So, I was just thinking about the fact that when you're looking for a consultant, it's really hard to find the one that you feel you can work with and be open with and trust to get you through those hurdles, and also sometimes can be considered cost prohibitive. So what would be your advice to anybody thinking that perhaps there's too much on their plate and they need to get a consultant to help them?
Well, firstly, a cup of tea costs nothing. So having a tentative conversation with someone, you will judge and come to that conclusion rather quickly. What I would say is, living in Britain is a kind of strange, and now I need to just preface this. Working for Novuna, obviously you access consultancy for free, right? But in the open market, it's quite challenging because there are a lot of consultants who will try and walk you into a kind of sales funnel by offering you free work, or indeed put fees that are so eye-wateringly high you wouldn't want to proceed. But like I say, talk to a few people, have a tentative cup of tea, see what your waters tell you, and that generally tends to point you in the right direction.
Brilliant answer, thank you.
So I noticed early on, and it's something that we talk about a little bit, and I would love for you to expand on the importance of stakeholders in a decarbonisation process or in any kind of piece of consultancy. That getting the stakeholders around the table. How important is that, and how are those stakeholders changing in the decarb sort of world?
Well, it's interesting because with the advent of ESG and sustainability kind of coursing.
ESG, but we don't allow acronyms here.
Acronyms, okay. So sustainability, because that's starting to affect businesses in many different ways, right? So you've got executives who are now being remunerated based on their environmental credentials, for example. There are imperatives for businesses, both from compliance perspective and reporting perspective, all of that stuff. So it's not something that affects one individual stakeholder in a business, but almost, if you think about it from a board perspective, it will affect all of them. Okay, and it's really nice that there's actually a cohesion at sort of board level where there is probably one topic that binds them all. So actually, it's probably easier having a conversation around something that everyone will benefit from. So, historically, from a fleet perspective, you had to knock over a lot of stakeholders, right? Finance, HR, the fleet managers themselves, procurement, and so on and so forth, right? But actually, this idea of sustainability, carbon reduction, cost reduction, it goes without saying, etc. It binds them all. It means that you don't have to, pick off your stakeholders, have separate conversations, and then bring them together and have a joint conversation, then bring them all together and pitch and all of that sort of stuff. You can say, look, this is our objective, and it's going to be aligned to their objectives to some degree, right? So it actually makes it an easier conversation to bring all those stakeholders on board.
Brilliant. I agree, John.
I have a little question. Paulo, what's it really like working with Johnny Berry?
It's a real pleasure, to be honest.
Hey, you know he's lying because his lips are moving. What's going on?
What is it really like? Is what we say.
No. Well, so Johnny's got a ton of energy, a passion and a focus, and that's brilliant. And it's infectious. Fleet consultancy is a bit grey, I'll be honest. So interacting with someone who is, like I say, energetic and focused and passionate, it rubs off. And Johnny knows his onions, and I hope Johnny thinks that I know mine. And we work shoulder to shoulder on this stuff. So it is occasionally he might not show up. Or indeed show up. Right?
Yeah, we know that feeling. We know that feeling. That's
Occasionally, it's not a theme. It's not a theme.
Johnny.
It has happened.
It's time to move on, I think. My bosses are watching.
Can I ask a question? Is it time? Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
All right. It's sort of an add-on to Paul's, but probably better. Paulo, when the EV Cafe was born out of EV people, enthusiasts like us wanting to build something. Our audience is largely EV related. One of the things we always talk about is breaking those church walls down and trying to reach beyond the converted. What do you think is the best way to do that? Not just for us, but for generally, when there's such a large market out there that is still not even EV curious yet, but sort of know that it's somewhere in the background. They got to fix that at some point, but knowing it's coming around the corner quite quickly. How would you address that in terms of trying to breach those church walls?
Oh, great question. I would observationally in the work that I do, right? There are some businesses that frankly are holding their nose and closing their eyes and pretending that this isn't happening, right? And I'll classify those rather unkindly as heathens. Okay. So climate change and anthropogenic climate change is happening. The EV stuff is just a niching for those guys over there, right? And then we've got the people down the other end of the scale, right? Who want to decarbonise at all costs, and I'm not joking. I've heard that mentioned, and it's quite shocking when you've been spending 20 years trying to reduce costs, even to the penny, for every business you work for. So to do something at any cost is interesting. So let's call those the evangelists. Okay. Now you full well know on media channels, you can see these pitched battles between the evangelists or the converted and the heathens, right? And my view is be a pragmatist, right? Okay. Johnny's got quite an interest. We have a good chat about this sometimes, and whether or not carbon emissions are driving climate change, clean air is a good idea for our kids, right? So regardless, you can set some of the arguments to one side and talk about all the things that clean energy mean for us as a society. So being a pragmatist and saying, well, look, oil will run out. Okay, so oil will run out. We have to do something at some point. So I think not being enthusiastic and excited and keen and focused is one thing. That's cool. But I've seen some nastiness on both. Both from the zealots and the heathens, right? And I think that's really unhelpful. It's negative energy in a waste of time, quite frankly. So having meaningful, pragmatic conversations about how to move things on, taking on board people's views without being, frankly, nasty, I think is probably that's how I would kind of navigate it and try and move things on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paulo. I just realised I was watching our live LinkedIn video, so I was really behind for like a moment or so.
Standard.
Anyway, where was I?
At least he's in the room today.
Can you edit out some of the comments Paulo made about me, please? Producer Jarvis and behind the scenes for the EV Cafe Crush. He's our 6th member. It's actually now time to move on to our next guest. So I'll let Sam Clark do the honours. Paolo, if you can sit in the background with producer Joe for the time being, and do come back on a bit later on to answer any questions from the audience. And that's Sam's job. That's John's job. So,
Yeah, all right.
John, you should do the intro.
One question. I get all this grief.
Sam Clark show.
And it wasn't even a better question than mine.
Thanks, Paolo.
Thanks, Paolo. Thank you for pointing out. Mine was a great question. I don't remember you doing that for Paul's. But anyway, Alan is next. So, Alan has over a decade of experience working in the globally managing land, property, fleet, and his current role at Thomas Hardy provides facilities, procurement, and fleet management for the group to include cars, vans, and trucks. So Paul will be happy. Who are Thomas Hardy, you may ask? Well, they are a Volvo truck and bus main dealer based in northwest England. And as well as decarbonising transport, they recently commissioned solar panel installation on one of their depots, and their mains power for all their locations is supplied by 100% renewable energy. So they firmly get my GridServe vote for solar generation and renewable energy. So well done, Alan, and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you.
Hello, mate.
So yeah, as just been introduced, Tom's Hardy, a main Volvo truck and bus dealer in the northwest of England and North Wales, founded in 1985. We've grown from 2 sites to 6, and we also have a body shop in Chorley if anyone needs any trucks fixing. We've embarked on a sustainability plan, shall we say, over the last couple of years, and we broke it down into 3 phases. So, as just mentioned, I don't look after fleet, just look after fleet. I also look after our properties as well. And they generate quite a lot of CO2 emissions, as you can imagine, a heavy vehicle workshop with trucks in and out all day. So we started with phase 1, looking at our facilities, and we've put some initiatives in place that we've reduced all waste to 0 landfill. Anything that can't be recycled is now sent to generate heat. Eliminated all plastics from our sites, all single-use plastics, I should say, where alternatives are available. As just mentioned, we've got solar going into 2 properties. The hope is that they will generate enough power during the day that we don't need to use any grid electricity overnight. But let's wait and see what happens with that one. They're not installed yet. What else have we done? We've started our process now of cars. So all our company cars now are planned for EVs. And as Sarah was saying before, I love the Polestar. Mine's outside. I won't be without it anymore. Had to go to a petrol station the other day in a petrol car and got so much anxiety it was untrue. But there we go. Other issues we've done, we've upgraded our LEDs to motion sensors, reduced consumption from electricity just from that method by 15%. With costs of electric this at the moment, that's a massive plus for us. And we've also created a recycled truck parts on Facebook. So if anybody needs any Volvo genuine branded truck parts, go to Facebook, look for us, and we can get some used parts out there. Phase 3 is now our commercial vehicles. That's proved a little bit more challenging, hence why it's been pushed down to phase 3. And fortunately, Paul's little help in consultancy. So we've got 3 different main types of commercial vehicles. I've got parts deliveries vans, I've got breakdown vans, and I've got mobile service vans, all of which have unique challenges in terms of electrification or hydrogen or anything else that might come about in the future. And I'm at day 1 of, okay, what do I need to do? We understand the process, obviously. We've got the cars ready. Vans are a bit more complicated, so we've turned to the experts in that one. Yeah, that's pretty much us. I don't know if there's anything else I can add.
Alan, that's brilliant. It's really great that you've applied. Just talk through what you did. So we put out a consultancy offer some time ago. You saw that, and what happened next?
Yeah, so I saw the offer, immediately clicked online, filled in all the questions, and then, got to be honest, completely forgot about it until I got a phone call back saying, "Oh, you've been successful." It wasn't. It was literally, here's an online form, fill it in, a load of questions. Weren't particularly difficult questions. It was just submit, off we go, and then here we are today. Looking forward to our meeting in September to move this forward.
And what do you hope to get from it?
Knowledge, I think, is probably what we're looking for. So I don't think it's a secret that I know someone's got a comment on there that going electric on cars is a challenge, but going electric for cars is actually quite easy. The biggest challenge is getting people to buy into that. The cars are out there. Depending on your budget, there's all sorts of different models that'll do the ranges that you need to do. We've educated people so they understand they don't need a car that will do 500 miles, because at no time do they ever need to do 500 miles. We're in the Northwest. We've got about 60 miles maximum traveling distance between our branches. Even traveling to every branch in a day, I do about 120 miles. Polestar, not advertising in any way, shape or form, is brilliant for that. Ooh, got a hand up.
I have a question, but it's not for you, Alan. It's Paul. Paul, the Polestar.
Oh, I can be the yin or the yang to the yin.
No.
So John Curtis knows fine well that I don't enjoy the Polestar for a variety of reasons, which I probably oughtn't to exercise here. But a couple of questions for you. On your way in, you want to do the makeup, put the mirror down, you get the back seats, and then find the second cup holder.
It was a serious question. And the reason I asked the question, Paul, was that we often find this in our industry, that one person will recommend something, and this is relevant to consultancy generally. Somebody will recommend something because it's their personal favorite. Somebody else won't recommend something because it's their personal hate. And the reality is that we all have our own views, but evidence is what gives us the way in which consultancy adds value. And so your evidence, Paul, is as equally valid as Alan's, but we need to take the broader perspective to get lessons out of that, which is Polestar are flying off the shelves. So Alan's probably right and Paul's wrong.
No, but I think, John, you make a really good point, and I think it's as a consultant, you've got to be objective.
Yeah.
You've got to take the emotion out of it, and I might like one van more than another van, but I take the emotion out of that to say what suits the purpose. And I guess in vans, it is more about things being fit for purpose and trucks fit for purpose rather than cars, which is personal emotional nonsense in terms of the choice that you make.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Anyone that's a fleet manager will know the emotions that get involved in choosing cars. So we've put 3, I won't advertise which ones, we've put 3 on our fleet, and they are based on efficiency and the distance it will travel. Because let's be honest, range anxiety is still the biggest thing that people worry about. So for the first electric car, we're going for one that's got the range so that they don't have that anxiety. Second ones, who knows? People will be used to it by then. But for now, it's a good car and it goes a long way, Paul. So stop.
Yeah, harder anxiety is also another one. Sam, you had your hand up there.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, question.
Yeah, Sam knows that mine was up first. Again.
No, actually, Sam was up first.
No, it wasn't.
And then
I'm watching it later. Oh, it's on delay. It just happened. I literally put my hand up before Sam. I just saw it happen.
To be honest, I've already been told off too many times today. So, Sarah, you go for it. Ladies first.
No, because I've got a really good point, so I just want to smash yours out the water. Do yours first.
We do need to get on with the next guest soon, so make the questions snappy.
Andy Roberts, just seen your point. Very good one. Totally agree with you. Right, Alan, question for you on the truck side. So yeah, we talked about cars. Vans are a bit boring. Paul will know that. But as far as trucks are concerned, are you seeing an increase in interest in that particular field? Something I'm very interested in looking at this year for our business. But I'd love to know if you're seeing an uptick in interest in those bigger electric vehicles.
We are, yeah. So Thomas Hardy were the first UK dealer to actually sell an electric truck into Fox Brothers, the tippers. I think, and I might be wrong, so don't quote me, but I think we're still top of the league for number of electric trucks sold in the UK. There is a big uptake. There is a lot of interest. We've ordered our own electric truck for demonstrator use, which is due later this year. But that will be limited to the big players that can basically afford an electric truck, because let's be honest, like the cars, they are a lot more expensive. So there's a lot of interest, but finances do kick in with some people. Especially with
follow-up question. I know that Paul's got his hand up, but that's his turn after me, and I've already butted in again. But presumably, you'll be looking at that from a TCO perspective. So yes, they're more expensive lorries, but you're going to be wanting to demonstrate the diesel savings as part of that package, right?
Yeah. We've got a group of fleet solutions managers. Basically, we'll go out to customers and help them identify which electric trucks will be suitable and what they need to consider, basically.
TCO being total cost of ownership before Paul picks me up on it as well. Just
Sarah got there before you, Sam.
oh no!
Just like O'Han got there before you.
Sarah always gets there first. And then we ignore her.
All right, Sarah, over to you, I think.
No, it's fine. I'm conscious of time. Thank you anyway.
Oh. Great question.
Okay.
Sam, you asked my question. So total cost of ownership, especially in trucks, really, really important. That whole truck as a service kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Let's just highlight Lorna's question.
Oh, you're doing questions now?
Well, no, sorry, no, take it off. Shush. No, sorry, John. I got all excited. I'm sorry.
It's a really good question, Lorna, to be fair.
I'm sorry, John. John, I'm sorry. Sorry, please stay. Don't go. Don't go. Please stay.
Right, we have time.
I've just realised
we'll get to answer that question later. For now.
I was watching the LinkedIn Live again. So I was like a minute behind. Oh, it's got hair again. Next guest then, Sam. Who have we got?
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Alan.
Okay, next guest is some bloke called Aaron or something. I don't know. I'm not sure we've ever heard of him before.
Oh, no.
AJ to his mates.
He is the Associate Vice President, Sales and Business Development at Geotab, with a background in the IoT, which is the Internet of Things, delivering complex programs. Aaron's experience helps lead Geotab's channel development efforts across multiple sectors, focusing on unlocking the value of connected car ecosystems. In other words, a bit of a geek by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I deserve that intro for not sending you a blurb, Sam. So thanks for reading that on LinkedIn.
Hey, I haven't finished yet. Geotab is, of course, a long-standing EV Cafe sponsor. And as always, welcome, Aaron, to the Madhouse.
Because Sam Clark spent so long on your intro, you've only got 30 seconds.
That was the smallest one.
My first point is going to be, Sarah, was your question worse than Sam's, or did you just concede because of time? Because I'm assuming it's worse. You were quite strong.
It was actually a point about consultancy and the right approach to it. So I thought I'd save it for the discussion.
Okay, good excuse.
Oh, wow. I nearly lost my career by swearing at you then, Sam. That was so bad. You just didn't.
Anyway, Aaron, carry on.
Yeah,
Aaron.
I'll try and save you both from swearing at each other. Yeah, so I will keep it short because, as Sarah mentioned before, I think I've given a bit of an overview of Geotab a couple of times, but I think from the point of view of consultancy, I will angle my introduction. So Geotab kind of fundamentally is creating tools, I think. That's a very jazzy animation. Thank you. Geotab is creating tools and insight for people to use to consult with fleets. So, that can be a fleet manager. So, like Alan at Thomas Hardy with his fleet manager hat on, he has some decisions to make, and we try to provide insight to help. What are those vehicles? What's the real range of a Polestar, and is it relevant to the fleet based on real world data? To start in the very basic things, and then moving right through to what we're doing on the other side of Alan's fleet, which is helping him figure out which vans could change to EV with some more complex requirements. So not just an empty van driving around or, your standard van full of packages. What does that look like under varying loads? And so we're really focused on making sure we get the data out of the vehicles to be able to create that insight. So what is the difference between a 1 ton and a 2 ton full van? And what does it look like? What assumptions can we make based on how those vehicles are grouped within the fleet? And then working with, similar companies to Novuna, arming the teams within those companies to make more insightful consultant approaches to the businesses. So whether that's from looking at real world data about ICE vehicles, EV vehicles, right through to the next iterations of our products, which help to give consultants and fleet managers the tools to plan charging infrastructure, and tons of anything you can imagine that you can do based on the data that comes out of the vehicle. And further than that, we're now starting to build out an ecosystem of consultants and like-minded people like the EV Cafe that can help fleets. So something we're working on at the minute with a bit of a consortium is how can we influence curbside charging? So how can we build up demand for curbside charging in areas from multiple fleets, and then work with the charging providers to put that charging infrastructure in place, and then work with the fleet managers of those fleets to give them the data to reimburse the drivers, to make sure the charging infrastructure is working, and to warn the driver as an example if that infrastructure maybe has an issue and their vehicle's not going to be charged by the morning when they need to start their job. And that's the short version, Johnny. So I'll stop there to help you get back on time.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
We've got any questions for Aaron?
We have got a question, and it's a really, really great question from Mike Fisher. And he's joined us from LinkedIn. Thanks, Mike. What do you actually do in plain English, Aaron? And this is, do you know what? That's such a good question, because we all get sucked into we all understand what telemetry is and data and all that stuff. What do you do?
Good question. I'll try again in even plainer English, Mike, because I was trying, I promise. So on one side, we connect vehicles. So we're drawing in data from the vehicle, whether that's through our device or from the OEM. Then we start to draw in data from other places, whether that's charge point providers or other tools that the fleet manager is using, like weighing platforms or tire pressure monitoring. And we try and present that in a way that's useful to either a fleet manager, so in tools that they can use in a user interface, or to other people that are interested in that fleet. So for example, we can provide Paul with a lot of great data about the Thomas Hardy fleet that's on the road today. So he can make some assessments and use other tools that we have available to make recommendations for what the fleet manager should do next in terms of procurement, what that means for total cost of ownership, or even how they should try and influence their drivers' behavior in terms of idling or how they're charging and what type of charging they're using. How's that?
Now you've got to badly describe your job, Aaron.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, try that.
Can we cut that bit out if you guys are happy with it? And I'll just play that one every time I need to do like an elevator.
It's one and all, I'm afraid, Aaron. Off you pop. That's it.
What do I do badly, Johnny?
No, just badly describe the job.
Yeah, badly describe my job. What I do badly is not email Sam short descriptions of who I am. So I get my long North American job title read out and my whole LinkedIn bio.
I mean, what else do you expect?
Every day's a school day.
You brought it on yourself.
I know I did.
You're the only guest that didn't give me an intro, so.
Shall we invite Paulo and Alan back onto the call so we can answer questions from the audience? And then give you a bit of a warning, Sarah, that we go to the news round section at this time.
A warning? You must be feeling nice.
Right, so over to JC in the mail.
Well, greetings. So Michael Barton again from LinkedIn. Michael's been brilliant today. Lots of questions. Paulo, Michael asks, what's your strategy for finding out as much as you can over the said cup of tea? So if you're a customer, how do we get the best out of you when you pitch up?
Oh, it's a really subjective answer I'm going to give here, but there are different styles of consultants, I suppose. You've got your kind of condescending, I'm the expert sort of style, would you say, or the submissive, you tell me what you want to do. But really, I think that the sweet spot's probably around being able to collaborate, a sort of collaborative approach, and understanding that the consultant's not going to give you something that is really prescriptive. This is what you ought to do, because there are a lot of moving parts in all this stuff, right? So maybe I'm not so keen on options, but here's an approach that we could take together, and we'll kind of refine it together. So I think understanding that someone is in that collaborative space is important, and also someone that's not going to be too prescriptive. And is that a really, really broad answer to your question?
But I think it is a broad answer because it is necessarily so. It is a really complex business, and I don't envy you at all having to do it. But a trusted advisor is one of the most important things there is, I think, in this area, because you can make expensive mistakes.
I mean, there are signatures and signals all over the place, right? So if someone turns around and guarantees you a return on investment of 200% in the first 5 minutes, then that's an alarm bell, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's kind of how you start taking tentative steps and then move on into the project together.
Thank you, Paulo. Sarah's got her little sticky mitt in the air.
Yeah, I'd just like to bolster that, and thank you, Michael, for the question. I think the point I was trying to make earlier, it wasn't a question at all, it's just around the fact that when you're approaching a consultancy, and anyone who's been one will know that it's about almost answering a hypothesis, so finding out what the problem even is in the first place, and then approaching it in quite an academic way in the sense of removing emotion, but also weighing it up in a scientific way. So these are the elements to consider and these are the outputs, and then summarizing it. And the summary is the key, because that's where that trust comes in. So it's collaboration right up to that last moment when it becomes trust. So you build that over time. And I think all too often people go, right, I've got $3,000, what can I get for $3,000? Well, make sure you limit your time, and you're just not going to get what you want out of that. It won't be meaningful, it won't be useful, and it certainly won't be dynamic. It will be a rubbish piece of thing that you go, yeah, got it, put it on a shelf. And if you're approaching consultancy like that, you're going to waste your money.
Yeah, agree.
Alan, question for you from Shane Prendergast. And Shane is talking about trucks, and he wants to know about the future of trucking. And he asks, is it electric, hydrogen, a mixture of both, or is there another sustainable emission-free option? What's happening?
Oh my God, I think that's the most difficult question of the world ever, isn't it? Who knows? Yeah, I just don't know. There's electric trucks, there's LNG, there's hydrogen coming through. There's so many different options. I'm sure tomorrow someone will come up with a completely new scenario. Yeah, no, the answer, sorry.
Are Volvo focusing on any one particular energy source or and drivetrain, or is it a whole range and the market will decide?
Yeah, it's everything. So there are LNG Volvo trucks, but clearly the electric trucks. They are developing hydrogen as we speak. I'm not sure when they're due to hit the road, but they are development. Yeah, there's no point in going down. That's the road we're going to go down for every other option, because technology changes. What's right today could be completely the wrong thing to do tomorrow. So hedge your bets. Just do what's right for you right now. That's all I can really say.
I think that's kind of self-selected itself as winner of the mug in a really difficult crystal ball type question that is almost impossible to answer.
I think it's interesting. Sorry, I was trying to speak a moment ago. Somebody put me on mute, rudely.
What a good idea.
I was just on the back of that, the Volvo collaboration with Daimler and others, particularly in hydrogen, does show that actually the industry is undecided yet as to what, and also the collaboration has been mentioned a number of times. Keith Woodcock, Jason Gill. Collaboration now between major manufacturers on new technologies is a really interesting step forward, I think, and just tell us we haven't decided yet, and we just need to work out a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, if I was to give a personal opinion, I'd probably say hydrogen's perhaps the way that they need to be pursuing a little bit more, purely on the basis that there's no change to habits of people. They'll pull into a filling station, they'll fill it with hydrogen, they'll drive off. They'll get there however many hundred miles, they'll pull the 44 tons or whatever. But that's a personal opinion, not that of all that.
Yeah, I'm also going to give a personal opinion which actually disagrees with you, Alan and Paul, because there are a lot of choices out there and there is a lot of decision making to take. We haven't got the time to do that. Hydrogen is grossly inefficient and uses up too much energy to produce the hydrogen in the first place. And if they can improve on that in time, then great, and it might be more viable going forward. But the reality is we haven't got the time to go, maybe this, maybe that. We certainly haven't got the time to do hydrogen right now. What we do have to do is use the technology that is available today. Battery electric vehicles are available today. Let's use them. Otherwise, we are going to break the planet to a point where we cannot repair it. So whilst I'm all for innovation, I'm all for looking at new ideas, we've got to focus on stuff that we can do today, which is going to make a meaningful difference and prevent the onslaught of climate change.
But Sam, I don't disagree with what you've just said, and you haven't disagreed with me, because what you've said is that innovation and collaboration is still important, and the future is important. So we've still got to keep those things going, but in the meantime, we've got to accelerate the transition to electric and zero emission vehicles. It's not about stopping one and starting another. It's about doing both and kind of running the two streams alongside so that we get the best. But one thing is for sure, it isn't all going to be about electric in the future.
True, and I'll happily meet you halfway on that debate. But what I will say is we need to focus on the short term, which is what we've got available today. Whereas before I piped up, the conversation was about what we're going to do in 10 years' time, and that's not good enough. That's too late. We've got to do it now. So that's what I wanted to put forward. Is I don't, we are violently agreeing with each other, but we've got to weight things on what's available today.
So
deliver solutions.
Let's pick up Lorna McAteer's brilliant question, which Sam identified earlier and about to ask. Oh no, it was Paul, wasn't it? It was Paul was going to do that.
Only me to interrupt. You know this.
Lorna was asking about trucks specifically, but I think it's relevant to all three of our guests. And she says, for trucks, are you being asked for AC and DC connectivity on the trucks? So AC charging overnight because it's slower, or just DC to allow rapid charging, allowing for utilization and larger batteries. I guess there's a real mix at the moment of AC and DC. We all kind of want DC because it's very, very fast and you can just rock up, plug in and go away again. But there is a place for AC too. What about trucks, Alan? Is AC working or is it all DC stuff?
It's mainly DC. The AC is just too slow. It's not going to work. But you can buy mobile DC units to convert that. So as long as you've got the power supply, that's your biggest challenge. Have you got enough power to your building?
Yeah.
That's step one.
And Paulo, are you finding the same in the consumer and business to business market, that it's primarily DC that people are using, or are they putting in lots of AC chargers?
I think it's probably a question for Johnny.
Johnny! Oh, yeah, he knows nothing.
Well, I'm having problems with my sound at the moment.
There you go. He knows nothing. Covers it with the sound.
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
I can, mate. It helps if you pay attention. Suddenly your sound works better if you actually just focus. Sorry, mate. AC or DC in fleets, what are people really pitching for at the moment? Is it putting in AC and allowing that longer charge, or are people putting in loads of
it all depends on what the data tells us, really. The trace and dwell data tells us, as well as the demographic of vehicles within that fleet. If you're thinking that it's just one size fits all, then we're incorrect. There's horses for courses in every single depot. It might be just different charging delivery methods as well. So it might not just be a typical socket. It could be a portable charger, it could be a portable socket, it could be wireless charging, it could be a whole host of things, whatever suited that depot as well.
Aaron, picking up on that, he's absolutely right, isn't it? We go back to the data. You need the information to make informed decisions.
That's what you should have said, Aaron. You should have just said, my job is to give people the data to make informed decisions. #GeoTab.
There we go. You've said all for me. Thanks.
Sam's got his hand up.
Yeah, John, I just wanted to add a quick AC or DC point as well. It's not necessarily AC or DC. It's quite often both concurrently. In the truck world, it will be more prevalent that you've got a vehicle to charge, you've got a cab to keep warm, and a trailer to potentially keep cold. So there might be the need for both simultaneously as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So we've got a winner, Shane Prendergast of the mug for the best question. And we have a winner of the best comment. Seeing as it was thrown at me, I decided to go with it. Nigel Morris, our friend from Swansea, said, I work with local marine conservationists. They need an EVAN fit for purpose. What's not to love about it? So,
well done.
Shane and Nigel, join us on the EV Cafe LinkedIn page. Send us your details, or you can email us at hello@evcafe.org. Say you're a mug winner, and we'll prime our executive assistant personage who will sort out the mugs and get them
Please
to you.
title the I'm a
Well
mug.
done, Johnny, it's back to you.
I was going to say, are we going to the news round section of the show?
Yes.
Yeah. 5 minutes. So over to you, Sarah.
Music.
Huh?
Got it. Okay, there we go.
Way!
And welcome to the EV Cafe News. I'm Sarah Snowman. It's lunchtime. Please pay attention because I cannot read through these classes. And I've only got 90 seconds and I'm very, very hungry. We bring you 3 real stories from the EV world today. First, a subject we all love. Investment news. GridServe secured an initial £200 million investment from Infra Capital in support of the company's drive to decarbonise transport through electric vehicle infrastructure. The investment accelerates GridServe's plans to further the company's pioneering sun-to-wheel model, which encompasses it generating energy through high solar farms, distributing that energy to a thankfully awesome national charging network forecourts and hubs, with the aim of delivering 5,000 high-powered chargers by 2025. And kudos as well for also championing improved bay layout, excellent signage at their newer installations, just saying. Meanwhile, friends at Osprey Charging have advanced their position in the market by subscribing to ChargeSafe, a public charging endorsement body that independently inspects and rates EV charging locations. Shout out here to Kate and James for making a much talked about concern a trigger for change. Osprey are the first charging network to join the scheme, and ChargeSafe is inspecting and rating all charging locations in the UK this year based on 63 criteria for safety and accessibility. All ratings will be publicly available. Now, I was supposed to cover some more of the headlines from the previous Friday news blurb that we are now producing called the EV Cafe Espresso Sessions. So do tune into those. But I'm feeling rebellious, and I did just get sent an awesome story. So thank you, Varun Gandhi. A business called LTS Cycling is currently part of a government-funded feasibility study for recycling of EV batteries. And on current projections, the average lifespan of a battery is 11 years. Therefore, the volume of batteries coming to their end of life is projected to be 1.4 million by 2040. I don't know quite where the plant will be, but it should be open by 2024. But it did raise a point. So Mr. Kirby, hashtag Vangeek, the very one, if the UK is the second largest vehicle market in Europe with an annual sale of exceeding 2.3 million, how many of these are vans? Or is that an entirely separate figure? And should we be thinking carefully about vans separately for battery recycling? Back to the studio.
That's a very good question, Sarah. So the total volume of vans ranges between 300,000 and 350,000. It might be 370,000 next year as a total. In terms of percentages of vans, we are probably looking at 5 to 6% this year, and we might get 7 or 8% next year. The increase seems to slow down, but it does depend very much on the targets in terms of the manufacturers. How many electric vehicles will they produce? Good question. It's going to take longer to get to a big number in terms of batteries for vans than it will be for cars. So cars will definitely be what we need to deal with.
Just because there are different uses of the vehicle, whether that affects that projected 11-year thing, if it's shorter lifespan or not. Based
on data that I've learned from Geotab, the mileage doesn't tend to affect the battery life quite as much. Charging cycles do, and whether it's charged DC or AC might. Exactly. So that could affect the longevity of the batteries, but it's certainly in excess of 8 years because of the warranties and stuff.
I'm going to that Geotab tool, the battery degradation tool. It's hugely informative.
Really helpful.
Yeah. JC, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just a quick point. Leslie, Regional EV Sales Manager on LinkedIn, has said that she missed a lot of our broadcast because we didn't notify her the day before that it was happening. We go live, we let people know, and she missed that we're actually going to be live despite the fact that we do put messages out. Okay. Just to give you some comfort, this is a new platform. I am taking over doing all of the social media and posting out and letting people know what's going on. So if you want to know ahead of time, stop it, that that this is happening, drop me an email. john.curtis@evcafe.org. I'll add you to our database and we can send you reminders. We can let you know what's happening. We can let you know where we're going to be. We will keep you up to date. We do not want you to miss a thing, Leslie. Thanks for your comment.
You can watch it all again, right? You can watch it all again indefinitely now.
We're on YouTube. We're on LinkedIn. We are everywhere.
JC, I think it's important that if you follow us on LinkedIn, then fine. But if you hit the bell icon, you'll get all of our notifications.
You subscribe.
Or attend. If you attend, you get the notification.
You can also do the
So
same
yes,
thing on
Leslie.
YouTube. So if you subscribe to us on YouTube, you can hit the bell for notifications, and you'll know when us silly five get together again.
Hit the bell.
But that's all we've got time for anyway for today. The next time we're on is our news round, which on our weekly
Friday.
news update on Friday at 10 o'clock. That's every Friday at 10 o'clock. So you can't miss us. Put that in your calendar now. So yeah, thank you everybody.
We've just had a request to go onto TikTok.
Don't tempt John. Don't tempt John.
Be careful what you wish for. Be careful.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for tuning
You
in.
can put an EV challenge on there, I suppose.
Oh,
Are you signing up? Nice. You're
No.
first.
Bye,
well,
everybody.
thank you.
Cafe
Thank you to our guests. Really insightful.
Right.
Wonderful job.
Paul, have you got any final words about waking up?
Waking up. Oh, wait.
Inside joke, everybody. Bye. We'll tell you more about it next week.
Amazing.
Producer Joe, please take us off live.
Yeah.